The fact that I can say One Punch Man visits McDonald's, and that's actually pretty damn accurate, is one of the many reasons why I love the Eminence in Shadow, because not only does Mr. Background character get a new face, a new look, and with a 1-2 punches basically making himself a name. I mean, he actually did go to a McDonald's, and when you think about what Shadow Garden has done for this world, it is so interesting to see how they essentially have plastic surgery, they have fast food, they have novels from our own world, like just to see the progression of this world from such a small moment of a dude playing Chuny, just wanting to have some fun times, and in return, it just turns into such a wonderful world, all things considered. But then again, he did give a hamburger to a girl, and now fiance apparently got stabbed and is on the run, so it's gonna be some exciting times for the last stretch of the Eminence in Shadow, and I'm here for it. Now, I do have a full live reaction to today's episode available on my Patreon, so consider supporting if you want to see that. But let's talk about episode 15. It's a bit of a shame, right? Because this season, we're approaching the finish line. Yes, there's the rumored more episodes are in production, but still, eventually, we will have to say goodbye as we wait for more. But I think what I like about this show is how, on paper, so much about it is so silly and goofy, but I love the fact that it continues to balance that line of parody and serious, and as the anime watcher, even when Sid himself is dead-ass serious, it's hard not to just get a kick out of what's happening. Like, there's moments after his beatdown from this dude, who I am convinced is probably going to end up dead at some point. He's just basically like, he's tooting his own horn. He's basically saying, yes, everyone's going to think I'm weak, I'm going to end up amazing sometime. And he's just basically gloating like a maniac, and everyone just walks away from him. Those are the little moments that sell me on this show, and I love the fact that he can just so casually build a harem without really acknowledging it nor caring for it, because for him, the most important thing in his life right now is being the Eminence in Shadow. And I'm not sure if I'm the only one who felt this way, but when I saw him go into like the thing that goes over his head to change his face, I was like, this is some Jimmy Neutron stuff. If anyone's ever watched Jimmy Neutron, the way he does his hair in the morning to get like the different looks, even though he always settles on the same one, it was almost the spitting image of that. But it was so cool, right? Because initially just kicking in, you're like, okay, she'll be clumsy and we'll have like some general scenes that we're used to, but instead they're like, no, we're gonna shake up the formula. There's like this bike that powers like the electricity for like the machine. You have this, like, it's so interesting. The idea of like the slimes, but then turning it with like a bit of magic into like this plastic surgery goo. It's interesting, right? Because when you think of like someone taking a new appearance, it's a spell, right? They cast a spell, some mystical effect will go on, and then in return, they look like someone new. Instead, the Eminence in Shadow says, hey, we know what most of these series do. No, we're trying to progress their technology with that bit of like past magical aura, but with like a futuristic twist. And to see just a scene that could have easily just been them casting a spell or just throwing some slime goo and say, yeah, now you have a new face. They did so much more to make it a lot more compelling, as then they casually also show us that they've invented fast food in this world. I didn't think they were going to acknowledge that. I just thought, like, as soon as you see the one shot where you see the drink, the burger, and the fries, McDonald's has a very noticeable fry holder, so I was like, yeah, that's 100% them parodying McDonald's. But I wasn't expecting them to acknowledge it because it wasn't really that important, but it was kind of funny because I think they called it something like Meg Ronalds or something like that. And I just thought to myself, okay, Devil is a part-timer, not the only show where you can maybe have someone who's like super powerful end up working there. And I think that'd be a funny joke at some point if like maybe in order to feel like more of a background character, he ends up getting a fast food job or something. I don't know, I'm just spitballing ideas, but they kind of write themselves. But I kind of like it because they're like establishing this whole like betting situation. Which, I mean, immediately when you see our boy just continue to, like, dodge the question, hey, give me your funds, he would then change the tune and be like, hey, let's talk about this, hey, give me your funds. And then in the middle of getting him to spitball information, he walks away and gets 3 more burgers. I'm fully convinced he made that man pay because, I mean, I just don't see how someone who was basically spending all of his money on a Chuny room would do anything for his own money unless it meant making himself look cool from his point of view. But I guess we'll only see in the future. But you have this man who, anytime you see a character who is like this very pretty armor and is supposed to be a badass and is supposed to be someone no one can end up fighting. One of the first scenes we see of him is he's carrying his sword around like on a wagon, like this thing that he can basically like tilt it and move it around. And I'm thinking to myself, any person who keeps his sword not on his waist or on his back, can he even lift the sword? Is this all for show? He just wants to make it look like he has a big sword, but he can't use it? Is he compensating for something? I don't know. But the fact that his armor is so pretty and sparkling and dazzling, it just makes me say, like, this man's never actually seen a battlefield at all. I mean, these are the types of characters who usually end up first dead in the war, even though they had the most respect prior to the wars. But just to see, like, the whole power level joke, which I thought was funny, because, like, he's saying, oh yeah, this man looks like he's got about 1400 power level. Our boy Sid's, got 33. And as he's gloating about knowing the outcome, it's over. It's like this goofy joke of being like, no one knows what happened because it happened too fast, and then he just casually walks off because this is round 3 at this point, and no one's like, how can this dude who looks like can't even walk up straight, like his back's all busted up, he looks like he has no energy, there's no way this dude's gonna work out. I think it's just so funny because honestly, all things considered, I think as a background character, like, direction, this is probably one of Sid's most effective, because often when he's like, hey, I'll look like a background character, and then he jumps and gets stabbed in the chest, and that's like, I mean, yes, if he actually ended up dying there, that would be a background character death, but someone getting up and shaking it off, not really the most background character thing ever, but the idea of, like, making someone look like nothing and then kind of, like, rising up to be the surprise victory, he's actually doing pretty well, all things considered, though there are moments where you have to wonder, like, the fact that, you know, he gets that immediate beat down, and I'm like, okay, like, I can see the direction he's going. He's gonna do that whole, like, oh, you know, I shake this off, it doesn't even look like it hurt me, and then I'll end up winning the whole thing. But there are moments where maybe he could be a little more badass before holding off, but Sid's got his plan, Sid's got his playtime adventures in his head, and you know what, to his credit, he's doing pretty well right now. I mean, I just absolutely love this show. It's so interesting how, like, everything about it is so familiar on paper, but just the idea of Sid as the main character has shifted this into a brand new direction. And the thing that I've complimented a few different times recently is the fact that the sidecast isn't just there to be Sid's harem, or they're just there to serve a comedic purpose. Like, those things are true, don't get me wrong, but they're continuing to let their stories feel serious and real for them, even if Sid is just casually throwing a hamburger and not thinking of what it actually means to the person confessing her heart out to you, right? So I like those little moments. It really does add a lot to the show, and honestly, the more I watch, the more I like this world. It is one of those shows where I hope will just continue to get more anime, and honestly, I think the sky's the limit for this one. It's going to be fun, though, to see the different types of matches, because as it stands, no one really knows how he got to round 3, and as we clearly saw, only a couple of people could really probably zoom in and realize what actually happened there. So I'm interested to see if his future matches in this tournament are going to be anything else other than kind of almost that One Punch Man treatment or Two Punch Man treatment as Sid ends up doing, or if we'll get a little more crazy, a little more complex, but it'll be interesting to see. Definitely some test flags on some characters, and not Sid, if you know what I'm saying. But thoughts, feelings yourself down below. What did you think of this episode? What do you hope to see maybe with the remainder of this tournament, and, you know, the cliffhanger that they decide to leave us off on? Do let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. Like I mentioned, full live reaction is available on the Patreon, and while you're there, you can also get yourself a video shoutout like a few are about to get here. So we got Nilotep, Corbu, and Justin Knight. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.